is that they are an up-and-coming team, that they're the Cinderella team, that the slipper looks like it's, starting to fit. And I think that you need to catch some breaks like this. I don't think anybody ever said when Oregon beat them, however many points, said, "Oh, the Huskies are down. Should feel sorry for them." We're not asking for, we never asked for anybody to feel sorry for us. Oregon, I don't think, is expecting anybody to feel sorry for them, but I think everybody looks at, there has to be some luck involved in getting to 7-0, and they caught Oregon on a downtime when they're starting a freshman quarterback. Oregon State, they were down to their third string quarterback, second string running back. Stanford breaking in a new starter in a very loud environment. These teams are going to be all right. They're down right now. They are going to come back. There's a lot of meat left on their plate in their own schedule. But the Huskies, what I really like is that they have gone out and they have made statements in the first quarter. They have said, this is who we are. Load the box on us if you want. Take your chances. And we're going to find a way to beat you. And they have beaten down teams, and I really like that. But Anthony, I want to talk to you about the defense. On the defense, I think we saw the water boy, the towel boy, and the janitor out there holding Oregon State to 21 points. Seriously though, what did you think of the Huskies' defense in the first quarter and overall?
Right, yeah, I mean, what I love about UW, I mean, we can talk a little bit later about the second half performance, but I thought, and what we've seen all year long is these guys come out right from the opening kick and just bring it. Their energy is up, their gap discipline's there, their tackling is as sound as can be. I saw, I want to say Drake Gaines, also Keyshawn Bierria, Saul Muchin, my boy JoJo McIntosh, all just making sound tackles. Buda Baker coming up and laying people out right at the line of scrimmage. So I thought they were really sound early on. Marcus McManion, the third-string quarterback, wasn't really able to find any receivers downfield. That's a credit to Kevin King and Sidney Jones locking their guys down. And, we can say what we want a little bit about the third quarter performance, but the first quarter, when you need to play good football and allow your offense to kind of take a hold, which they did, 28-0 and then 31-0 through the first half, the Husky defense was on point. So just the energy right from the opening kick is always there from these guys.
Yeah, and on their first drive, I think the Huskies made a statement with their defense that they went down, they scored quickly. Tysen and I will be discussing the offense here in a few minutes. But Oregon State gets the ball, and they have a couple of nice little plays. Then they have a little penalty. They have a false start, and they wind up minus 7 yards on their first drive. And I think that's when you kind of thought, okay, on the first couple of plays, they thought, okay, Oregon State might be a little bit better. Is this going to be like 1985 when, it was the largest margin in the history of college football was 28 points, and the Huskies lost 31-30. You thought, are we going to see that again? And all of a sudden, the defense said, nope. They slammed the door down pretty hard on them, shut them out through the first quarter, held the Oregon State, I believe, to 54 yards in the first quarter, and that's pretty much what was all the Huskies needed. They had 21 points. They could have stopped right there, let Oregon State get their 17 and turn it in, but they still were out there. They were subbing. They were rolling guys through, and the guys that I really thought that really sort of did a nice job is the front three of the Huskies. Greg Gaines, Elijah Qualls, and Vita Vea. They just slammed the door. They pushed guys around almost at will. This defensive front, I hope Husky fans really appreciate what a special the three guys that we have right there, that is a lot of beef. That is hometown buffet's worst nightmare. and,
Yeah.
and they're starting to be a nightmare for the entire league. Anthony?
Well, yeah, and don't forget Damian Turpin, who had a very nice play on a 3rd and short, and then there was a timeout called, and he didn't get the TFL, and you could see the disappointment on his face.
Yeah. Yeah, and I actually got a text from his dad. He was like, "That's all right. We're going to be all right." And you know, I actually sent his dad a picture of the play, and he was down there. Great family right there, the Turpins. A lot of love for them, and that's a very good point, because it would have, I believe it would have been, well, the Huskies still held, but I think it was a 3-yard loss on that one. He's been outstanding all year long, and you know that's the classic we talk about just about every week. What the seniors are doing, Sam Ching. And you know, and I like to see the seniors doing it, but I also like that the Huskies were able to roll through some subs. And Tysen, another sub that kind of started the game. Joe Mathis was out, but Connor O'Brien filled in very nicely. And did you all meet you at the quarterback with Sam Ching as they sandwiched Marcus Anthony? You know how to pronounce his name, Marcus
Marion.
McMary, yeah. Anyways, spelled kind of funky, so it's kind of throwing me off. Anyway,
it's all good.
Yeah, I don't have the blitzing stats, but I can't recall any blitzes or stunts on that. I mean, what did you see with the defense right there with Connor O'Brien?
Well, they're doing just a heck of a job. They are stunting and stuff like that. There was I didn't have a full head count, blitz count, but they actually did bring more pressure, I think, than maybe what you saw against like Stanford, for example, when they brought, I think, only one blitz the entire game. Point being, though, Connor, just a testament again to the program, the kids, the coaching, is because this is a guy, 4th-year junior, I believe, who's been around, similar to Joe Mathis, kind of waited for his turn and waited for his shot. Same with Sam Ching. And both guys were explosive off the edge, and they're doing a heck of a job just with effort. And I think that alone, as a defensive lineman, can get you a long ways. And that's where I've been most impressed with the Huskies defensive line. Obviously, the 3 interior guys we talk about all the time, those guys are talented NFL types. Connor O'Brien, Sam Ching, I don't think anybody's going to take offense to this. Probably not. But you can make up for it a heck of a lot by just playing with a high effort, and then that way you can out-execute. Eventually, you'll out-execute them, and then, of course, like you said, you'll meet at the quarterback.
Yeah, and refresh me, because I always try to remember this after the show. I'm like, what were the 3 E's? Effort, energy, and execution. Is that right?
Yep, effort, energy, and execution. And I think that, in defensively especially, is something I really like to focus on. Offensively, it can be a little bit different, because sometimes energy can go. You want to work it the other way. You want to shorten the game, and maybe you don't want to play with tempo, or you want to be relaxed in a road environment. So it's a little bit different for offense. But as far as defense goes, especially on Saturday in the first quarter, there was effort, there was energy, and good golly was their execution.
Yeah, and they executed the Beavers, and the Beavers have a website called Build the Dam, and the Huskies damned the Beavers in that game. And you know, and there was just, I really want to talk about some of the youngsters. I don't want to get to Taylor Rapp just yet, but we're going to talk about what we learned here in a couple of minutes. But some of the youngsters that I saw, or that you saw some good stuff from, any names really sort of pop out at you? Either of you?
Aaron Fuller. I mean, I think obviously with the touchdown, I think more than just catching the touchdown, it's the fact that as a freshman, they're able to put him in maybe, I don't know if it's an unfamiliar spot, because I didn't watch him in high school. So I'm sure growing up he made plays out of the backfield. But to line up in the backfield like that and then execute the wheel route perfectly, and then of course obviously to catch the dang ball in the end zone, that's a heck of a play for him, because Game 7, this is probably about as much football as he's played, not necessarily in terms of games, but when we talk about physicality, mentally, top of school, that's a lot to take on as a freshman. and for him to be able to start getting more and more playing time and then to be used in sort of a unique fashion, I really appreciated that.
And the top three receivers, and we'll get more into the offense, but the top three receivers all had 4 receptions again. Aaron Fuller,
some symmetry. That symmetry is weird. I have to say that's a little strange. I think that's happened at least twice so far this season.
Yeah. But getting back into some of the youngsters on defense, any names really sort of jump out at you?
Oh, I would say Benning, and I'm going to butcher his name, and I do this, and I'm so sorry to all of my Polynesian brothers. I was very excited to see him get on the field and get some good game reps, and Coach Peterson talked about it today at his press conference that he thought he played well, and that you hear this all the time. It's one of those old but good, true cliches. There's nothing like game reps and game experience, and he was somebody who I was keeping my eye on. I thought he did a pretty good job considering that was the most PT in non-garbage time situations he's had this year.
Yeah, he finished with 3 tackles, 1 for loss, and he was flying all over the place. And I really like what he's bringing, what he's able to get out there, because we're going to lose a few players on this defense to the NFL. And he's going to be a valuable contributor for the next couple of years. And to really use a game like the Oregon State game and build up that depth so that in the event that we lose Joe Mathis for a little bit of time, that he can step in. You have Connor O'Brien on the other side. Just the depth that we're seeing out there. It's nice to be able to throw bodies at somebody, but quality bodies, well coached and hungry bodies. I just really love what the Huskies are doing defensively, and I hope that we can hang on to this staff, keep them intact. I think sitting at 7-0, some places are probably looking at who's coaching the defense. So, but we're going to have to try to hold on to as many players and coaches as we can over the winter. All right, and let's talk about the 3 things that we learned as in the Huskies' dimming of the Beavers. The Huskies won 41-17 over the weekend. But the one thing that I learned, and I've really sort of tried to keep you guys from talking about Taylor Rapp, but let's try to take the wraps off of that. His decision to enroll early was a very smart one. He started again and showed missile-like tendencies, and the move in the beginning, the move of starting in the spring, actually enrolling in winter quarter, is really paying off for him. He is disciplined. He flies to the ball, and I love this guy. He stayed up in the Pacific Northwest, didn't go anywhere, only wanted to be a dog, and it's paying off for this kid big time, Tyson.
Yeah, and it might allow me to be a little bit, I don't know, selfish is the right word, but he's somebody I saw when I used to do some broadcasting up in Whatcom County. He's from Seaholm High School in Bellingham, and admittedly, and I don't think this is no offense to Taylor again, you saw him in high school, obviously dominated the 2A ranks. You're like, okay, this kid is obviously a special player, but you wondered, like with all freshmen, is he big enough? Is he mentally tough enough? Just the transition isn't easy. But like you said, him being able, the student that he is, to be able to get into UW and start early, kind of like Jake Browning, and then to pick up all the nuances of this defense. Coach Lake has talked about it basically since the start of spring and fall, that they could not believe how quickly he was able to adjust. And it's more than just this Oregon State game. He was on the field a ton against Oregon. Portland State, I think, was his first official start. Taylor Rapp is somebody who I think is going to be a glue guy in this defense for the next 4 years, and maybe not somebody who's going to have, maybe he doesn't have Buda Baker's potential or the athleticism or just build of like the NFL corners like Kevin King or Sidney Jones. But boy, he's exciting to watch and just somebody who I'm very, 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 very much looking forward to relying on each and every Saturday.
And he brings the lumber. He has Azim Victor bad intentions. He doesn't hit up high. He's hitting down low. But that I love the guy. And Anthony, let's talk about what you learned from the Huskies.
Yeah, I would have to say that I thought I saw that there's plenty of room for improvement with the offense, and they've been great through 7 weeks. I mean, they've been absolutely fantastic. You look at what Jake Browning's doing, and he's right at the forefront of the Heisman talk. So the offense is clicking, but there were times where Oregon State had some free rushers coming in through the offensive line with blitzes that I thought, that'll be some coaching tape this week where Peterson will sit down with his offensive line and then talk to him about, maybe keying on a guy that may be coming from, up the middle or off to the side. And then we also saw Jake Browning audibling a lot in the first half, and some of those plays didn't really work out. So maybe just going over with Jake on what he's seen, and maybe sometimes it's just better to just hand the ball off to Miles or Levon, who they're both averaging over 6 yards a carry. So sometimes that's not the worst thing to do, is just hand the ball off.
And then
the 2 minute.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say quickly, the 2-minute drill. There was an opportunity there, even up 28-0, where they had a chance to tack on some points, and I think that'll be key down the stretch here as the games get tougher to execute with the 2-minute drill.
Yeah, and I will say that there's always going to be room for improvement on offense, and I like what you said about Jake Browning and the audibling, but they're averaging 48.5 points a game. I mean,
yeah,
how much more do you want them to average?
Units, Mike.
And they took their foot off the accelerator. But now here's a fun little stat for you.
I think my thing is just like we said, the schedule so far has been a lot easier than even what we expected. We thought Stanford and Oregon would be the traditional strength of program that they have been in the past, but that's not the case. So far, the competition hasn't been very good, and I think you've got to be, Chris Peterson's going to be really looking at that game tape with a sharp eye as to, what can I coach up? Where are we deficient right now? And maybe blitz pickup, maybe 2-minute drill. Maybe those are a couple of things that he'll look at.
Yeah, I like where you're going with that. Now, here's a fun little stat for you. Trey Adams and Coleman Shelton were first team All Pac-10 mid-season. Excuse me, All Pac-12 mid-season. Caleb McGarry, though, has given up 0 sacks this year. Boom. That exploded right there so much that it left you guys speechless.
I was trying to process it, to be honest.
All right, and over you to Tyson. Talk to us about the things that you learned about the Huskies against the Beavers.
Well, yeah, and I guess this is more actually leaning towards the offense. Basically, I learned that the Huskies' B game can beat most opponents, and because I'm going to include the third, not going to include, of course you include the third quarter, but as far as when the starters played a lot longer than I think I anticipated, even after they took, the 31-0 halftime lead. I definitely felt like something changed at halftime. I think some of it's tolerable in a way, as a fan, I should say. I'm sure the coaching staff isn't happy. But that really, the third quarter was inexcusable. And honestly, it's inexcusable to get outscored in the second half by Oregon State 17-10. That just shouldn't happen. Not with the team that the Huskies we think we have, and with the Beavers being where they are. But basically, ultimately, at least to my point, the Huskies B game can still beat a lot of teams, to where I can be disappointed in, like Anthony said, on how the offense missing some stuff, the lack of energy and execution in the second half, and still beat a team by 24 points. I mean, good place to be in, but certainly a place I'm not used to as a Husky fan.
Yeah, and I like that they. I mean, I can see where we can go both ways on this. Where they were outscored in the second half, but Gavin McDaniel is going to be able to go into GoHuskies.com, flip through the pictures, and he's going to be able to mount a picture on his wall. And I I don't know if people could really appreciate that, but I was with the '84 Orange Bowl team, and on Friday night they were getting inducted into the Husky Hall of Fame on Sunday. And I talked to a couple of guys, one that was a long snapper, and other guys that did not have big roles on the team, but the bear hugs that they were giving each other, they were just as big as the ones that they gave the starters, and they're all part of the team. And to see these guys be able to get in there, we don't know where they're going to end up this year. I like where they are sitting at number 4, but to be a walk-on, and I mean, if they had beaten the Beavers, if the Beavers came back and the Huskies won 41-40, and Gavin McDaniel is able to get in there, get a run, all these guys, you know what? It's mid-season. It's a big-time atmosphere. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
And I want to make it bigger. It's more the third quarter, I guess, I'm disappointed about then. And then I'll because I think you're right. And I definitely don't want to dismiss that because as somebody who wasn't a fantastic athlete and gave a shot at college football, at a much smaller level, that would have been something I would have, like you said, been able to go and hang and get a picture framed and say, hey, I carried the ball in a Division I football game in the Pac-12 against a Pac-12 opponent. That is definitely not to be diminished. I guess it's more that third quarter, that 75-yard touchdown run I just thought was icky. Just that kind of stuff frustrated me. Only because we're grading on a curve now. They're 7-0. They're 4 in the country. That's the level I want them to execute at.
Yeah,
because Oregon's.
Go ahead, Anthony.
I was just going to say, sorry, Mike. Oregon State came out. They got the ball first in that second half, and there's that first drive there where Tim Cook is just gashing the Huskies defense at 10, 9, 11, 15 yards of carry up down the field. And it wasn't until the defense got their backs to the goal line, we're like, oh, they're about to score. We should try now. It just seemed like, I rewatched the tape, and, guys like Keyshawn Bieria and Connor O'Brien and Taylor Rapp even, they were just a little bit hesitant at filling the hole, and Vita Vea and Qualls, they're getting pushed off the line. And it's like, why are you letting these guys, this is Oregon State, we're not talking about Alabama here, they're pushing you backwards a half after you dominated them up front. So what's going on? It's just energy, you can tell that they're up 31-0, and they frankly probably feel like they're not being tested, like this isn't a team that's capable of challenging them, and sometimes it shows in their focus, I guess.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with either of you. I could see, like I was saying, I could see both ways. I love that they were able to get out of the game injury-free, get all these guys on the field, and like you said,
right, and
I'd kill for that opportunity.
I will say this. It was nice to see Austin Joyner in that fourth quarter. He got victimized for the touchdown, the drive earlier, and then there was the onside kick, and then literally like the next play, he comes up with a just insane interception. So it was nice to see Austin Joyner get some actual playing time where they're actually throwing at him and giving him some run there. So that's something that I think will pay dividends through the rest of this season, and then obviously next year when guys like Kevin King and Sidney Jones perhaps are gone off to the NFL.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're a little bit behind schedule. I want to take a brief look at the punting. We usually don't spend a whole lot of time on special teams on the show, and which is probably a good thing, which means that they're not doing poorly. But in this one, I think we should look a little bit at the punting. The Huskies have their first punt blocked, I think, in the Chris Peterson era here. And I think we've all seen the leaky right side of the line on the punts, and nearly getting a hand on it several times this year. And somebody finally broke through. And are we to be concerned, or do you think they're setting somebody up to think that there's going to be a play right there? and have a little pop pass right there?
Oh boy, I think the twirling mustache, devious cartoon villain says yes. They are setting somebody up. I don't think they maybe wanted a punt to get blocked, but maybe they were showing something on tape. At least, however, at least according to Coach Peterson in his press conference today, he said that was actually their safe protection. It wasn't like their rugby style. They weren't trying to. Or sorry, he may have kicked at rugby potential. Oh no, it was a straight up kick. Now that I'm thinking about it, anyways. That was like their safe punt mode. So part of me, I kind of like your idea, Mike. I really think that would be really smart and something that this staff is capable of. However, according to Coach Peterson, that was the safe, easy play, and they just screwed it up, which is really disappointing.
Yeah. Well, I could see Tristan has 4.4 speed, or 4.5 speed. I'd like to see him on one of these punts one of these days. He's a big dude. I think he's 6'3", so he has big hands. I think he can. He's a really good athlete. I'd like to see him maybe throw one or fake that kick and run one. I think he might be setting someone up.
Well, you know what? Remember, he did on a fake field goal last year. He ran it in against Utah State. So they have utilized it before, and granted, that was I don't know how many games ago at this point. But like you said, I like the way you think, and I don't underestimate this staff in any way, shape, or form, considering they pulled out a flea flicker in the first quarter of a game against Oregon State. So at this point, nothing would surprise me.
Yeah. All right. And here's your fun stat of the day. The state of Washington should annex the state of Oregon. Washington outscored the three teams from the state of Oregon 152-41. Oregon territory is no longer Oregon territory.
Ooh. Oh, boy.
Tell me you saw that in spring.
Oh, I mean, yes, I did. I'm the one guy who thought the Huskies would outscore the state of Oregon by over 120. Oh my God, that is.
It could have been worse,
That's
when you
true.
think that we had our second team and third team defense out there for much of the game against Oregon State, it probably should have been a little worse.
Yeah.
Which is, that's crazy.
Yeah. All right, Tyson, we're going to look at the offense now. Oregon State thought they would challenge the Huskies' run game by loading up the box with 7 or 8 guys. I mean, yeah. That did not prove to be a very good measure for them.
No, they didn't. And I definitely overall, and we'll get to the grades obviously a little bit later, I think the Huskies didn't execute at the level that I'm used to seeing and that I want to see. But where they did just totally impress me was just the amount of shots they were taking downfield. And I think whether it's against Oregon State or if you're trying to win a championship in a championship game, I think explosive plays are the key, whether it's through the air or through the ground. And if, like you said, if you're going to try to stop the run game and just allow Pettis and why am I blanking? John Ross to run free deep, by all means, I'll take it. And that's what I love about the Huskies and their offensive game plan so far, game in and game out. Basically, the other team has given the Huskies an option. Either run it or pass it, and no matter what the defense chooses, they're wrong. And I think that's a testament, again, to the coaching staff and the kids on being able to formulate a game plan and then go out and execute it. Because it's a lot easier on Wednesday to talk about what you think you're going to do, and then on Saturday to actually go out and do it. And overall, definitely impressed, especially with how far they were throwing the ball downfield.
And, we won't talk a whole lot about Jake Browning getting away with another one that should have been picked. It was a great scrub play by, I believe it was Baselli, who the ball was picked off in the end zone, and he reaches through and pokes it free. That's what I think. I think that really said something about the improvement of the coaching. But I want to talk about John Ross a little bit. He was targeted 4 times in the first quarter. He came out with 115 yards. He was 4 for 4 on his receptions, but he finished the game with 4 receptions. He was targeted 8 times. And I saw probably the sloppiest route running I've seen from him. after the first quarter. There was one where he got a little bit bumped and he kind of gave up on the play, which was a pretty decent fade that he should have been able to accelerate through. And I think, between the physicality of the Oregon State defensive backs, they're the second best passing defense in the Pac-12, but they got physical with John Ross, and he's going to need to be able to respond going against Utah next week in what should be an electric atmosphere. But I really want to see him get redisciplined on his route running. I saw sloppy routes. He came out of his break early on one, and the ball he kind of overran the ball, had a ball poked through because he didn't utilize his speed. He should have accelerated out of the break to the ball. And I just saw 3 times in there that I was like, that was John Ross 2013. And I really want to see him really challenge himself over the week now of getting better, because he's going to be a valuable component going into Utah.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that has something to do with admittedly, I don't have a full with the TV angle. It's hard to tell what type of routes they run every single play, but it sure felt like they were working on stuff. And maybe, Mike, you had a better look at it. Maybe they were asking him to do things that maybe they haven't had him do this season. And that, not obviously not the example you just cited, but more that maybe they're asking and they challenge the offense to maybe do things a little bit differently, whether it was calling different plays, lining up in different formations, something different, because it really felt, the offense overall, I thought, felt disjointed. And it almost felt like each series they were like, okay, this series we want to work on, running off tackle left, or whatever the example is. I know that was a poor
disjointed,
one.
Disjointed is the exact word that I was going to use. And, Coach Pete alluded to that in his press conference, where he sort of said, we didn't want to show Utah anything. I forget the exact quote, but that is the gist of it. And they became disjointed when they didn't use the offensive identity that they have had in all of the other games.
Yeah, and that's where I was thinking, and I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, is that it was something like where they were trying to get work on stuff. What stuff, I know, is a very vague way to explain it, but where they were they actually came in with almost like a checklist, or they realized, okay, this is the situation, we're up. Now let's see if we can fine-tune some things, whatever they may be. I think if we were in the coach's room, we might have a better idea, but sitting from where we do, which is on our couch or in the stadium, it's a little bit harder to tell.
Yeah, and you talked about chunk plays, and they had 9 chunk plays or explosive plays that afternoon. There was Browning to Ross, the longest reception for Ross this year, 51, 19 to Fuller, 44 to Ross. And then there's the Dante Pettis, and John Ross, he even got caught from behind on a play. So he definitely is going to get razzed in the locker room about getting caught from behind. He kind of thought, he told me after the game that he thought he was going to score. You can find the interview on RealDawg.com. But he told me that he thought he was going to score, and he didn't see the defender to his left. And he had an extra gear that he didn't use. And I think that's indicative of the mentality that they became disjointed. They lost their focus, and I think they're going to be challenged over the week. But one guy that did not lose his focus, Anthony, is Myles Gaskin. He started off slowly because Oregon State tried stuffing the run, only to have Browning go over the top. But Gaskin had 18 rushes, 9 of those were for 10 yards or better.
Yeah, he had a really outstanding game. And just really quickly about John Ross, I think on that play, he actually had to slow down to kind of split the defenders, and basically came to allow the DB to catch him. I mean, John Ross isn't going to be caught by anybody when he's running full speed. But, so yeah, Myles Gaskin, I mean, I think what you see from him is just the patience, the patience behind the blockers to let his blocks develop and pick his way through holes. I think has really improved over the course of the season so far. And also, Miles is a guy that kind of gets lost behind these big linemen. With Trey Adams is 6'8", you got Will Dissly out there, pulling as a tight end, and he's 6'5", I think, or 6'6". So, just a lot of big guys. Caleb McGarry, 6'7", he's pulling his way around the edge. Miles can stay behind those blockers and kind of hide from the defenders and pick his way through the hole.
And I'll tell you what, there was one run on his touchdown run. He used, I think, just about every move that he had in the book. He had even the somersault there at the end. He didn't stick the landing because he landed on his head. But, the dude just has a lot of moves to hide behind guys, uses blockers. I absolutely love this guy. And he's coming on, it's coming on late, really, what it is, because I think the Huskies have just been very smart. We saw this last year where he sort of maybe burst on the scene a little bit late, but they were very judicious in how they used him. He had 18 carries against Oregon State. I don't remember how many he had against Oregon. Yeah. It wasn't a ton. And it's a punishing game, and they've been very smart about how they've used Levon Coleman, Miles Gaskin, and number 10, Jamon Dotson.
Yeah, that's a good point. They've been judicious about the carries. They're not overworking any of the guys. And I think in Miles' case, it took him a few games to kind of get the feel again after last year. I mean, you see that Rutgers game, the Idaho game, it looked like Miles missed a few holes. He was a little bit maybe tentative, maybe just a little bit slow to get unharnessed and really get going. And now, though, with getting 20, 18, 22 carries a game in the last few games, he's really found his rhythm. And it's been, he's been tremendous. And I think it's been also interesting to see them stick with Miles and really focus on getting him going, even when you've got a guy like Levon Coleman who's been simply outstanding in a backup role. I mean, what he did against Arizona was probably the player of the game. He was basically instrumental in us staying in that game and winning that game. So we've got an embarrassment of riches in the backfield of being able to go to Miles as your lead back, and then when he needs a breather, give Levon Coleman a chance to do what he can do.
Yeah, and I want to talk to both of you. Whoever comes up with, you just be ready to answer. I want to talk about Jake Browning as a quarterback, and he was 14 for 28 for 291 yards. They're showing 300 yards passing. I'm not really sure where they're subtracting the 9 in his official numbers. Carter Samuels. Okay. But
I didn't want to. I wanted you to get there. I'm looking at it right now.
It took me a second. Anyway, 14 for 28, 291 yards. This was QBR. It was one of his lower games, and he did not throw an interception, which really tanks your QBR. But 14 for 28. I saw probably 4 throws that I think that he would really like to have back.
Yeah, that's Anthony, you can go ahead.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Tyson. I'm glad you brought up Browning because there's actually a little bit I think we need to talk about here. I mean, he's been outstanding, but I think in this game he, like we said, he audibled a little bit, and there were some times where he tried to force a few throws, and then there was others that were just throwaways. Nobody was open, so he had to throw it away. And part of that was the receivers, John Ross, Dante Pettis, in particular, being unable to shake the Oregon State deep defensive back that was covering them. And Oregon State, credit to them, that's where they really shine is in the secondary. And there's a kid, Tristan Deku, who, he's an NFL caliber corner, and it's just that's something where the receivers, Pettis and Ross in particular, can, after this game, definitely go and work on some things and just being able to get open when Browning only has 2 to 3 seconds to throw instead of the 4 to 5 seconds that maybe they've been used to.
Yeah, and I think he had maybe not certainly not his best game, but I wonder if there was a little bit of a hangover from the point in Oregon where he had that rushing touchdown. I believe it was the first touchdown of the game for the Huskies, pointed at a defender, and then he had to go. His penance for that was that he had to do 500 push-ups. I'm wondering, was that sort of something that kind of came back to bite him a little bit? He didn't look as strong out there. Anthony?
I personally,
Tysen.
Sorry.
No, go Tysen.
Oh yeah. No, I don't think that was it. I like I said, I really do think that some of it was what Anthony said, that maybe there was some pressing the issue, and maybe maybe there was something talked about. Maybe it wasn't literally the push-ups, but maybe you could be onto something in that maybe there was a talking to, and he kind of wanted to, I don't want to say re-ingratiate, because it's not like this coaching staff isn't behind him 100%. But, they may have given him, it said, hey, we want you to do this, this, and this. And instead of taking what the defense gave him a couple times, he forced it. I mean, there was also a play where he got stripped from behind. Now, the ball went out of bounds, but we're talking about a couple near interceptions, and potentially a strip sack, or at least a strip ball. He was just a little more careless than I'm used to seeing him.
Yeah, he was definitely nonchalant on that play. I mean, you could see him even look back and see the defender behind him, and yet he still takes another 3-4 steps and doesn't get rid of the ball. So that was kind of interesting decision on his part there. And then also that throw to Baselia, I mean, that was way late, underthrown, and should have been picked off. I mean, quite frankly, that ball should have been picked, and he's fortunate that Baselia came back and knocked it out of the defender's hand.
Yeah, all right. And overall the Huskies, I'm not saying that we are negative. They're like everybody was saying, there's a lot of room for improvement, and there are a lot of talking points about this. And overall, I mean, the Huskies curb stomped them. They got them down early, stepped on their throat, and then they put in a lot of young guys. So I don't want people to think that we're negative here. We're not. I mean, I love the feedback that people give us about us being the most positive show out there. I love the comments, so I don't want people to think that we're negative. But when you're sitting at number 4 in the country, you're trying to find 1% improvement over here, 2% improvement over here, and it amounts to turning that corner of being not just a great team, but a championship caliber team. And that's what we're really looking at here, is being a championship caliber team that can go into Utah and in front of a national audience and really be able to say, we're not just back, but we're here to stay. All right, and I'd like to take the starting grades, the grading the starting units. And first of all, I'm going to start off with the special teams, and I'll let you guys kind of weigh in, but I'm going to give them a B.
Yeah, I liked what Van Winkle did. I thought Vizcaino was decent punting. Coverage units, fine. The block punt is what gives it a B for me as well.
Yeah,
I agree. Just really quickly, it was nice to see that, I mean, for the block punt to happen when it did, and then they'll be able to hopefully focus on improving that this week. So I'm kind of glad that happened, because they've been playing with fire all season, really, with the punt.
And let me just tell you, Tysen, you projected such a good image of that cartoon character twirling his mustache that I'm going to have a tough time scrubbing that one out of my brain. I'm just going to be looking every time they go back to punt. I'm going to be like, okay, is this the one?
Yeah.
All right, and Anthony, I'm going to give the defense a B grade. Give us your thoughts on the defense.
Yeah, B is fine. Just like we said, kind of that third quarter effort, I thought the energy was a little bit down, which will bring it down to a B for me. Otherwise, guys like Taylor Rapp, Buda Baker, Damian Turpin, JoJo McIntosh. I mean, they were just outstanding with their play in the first half.
Yeah, and Tyson, the offense with me, I really have to give him an A. I love the rotation. I loved overall, despite Browning being not his most precise, I really liked that they took what the defense was giving them and were still able to beat them.
Yeah, and I guess, and I said B. I wrote down B plus, and that's only because, like I mentioned earlier, I'm grading on a curve now, and I enjoy it. I'm glad that you mentioned that we are trying to be positive, and in fact, I savor, and I'm glad to hear that's how people have responded, because nothing annoys me more than swimming in negativity. So, anyways, I'm going B plus because of Browning's down day, but I ain't worried. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and I'm going to give the coaches an A, and I'm going to focus a little bit on Coach Saha, because he has more time with these players than anybody on the staff, and his job is to get, like you talked to the B guys, getting them ready, and there's so much depth that they have built that they were able to get in there and. Okay, they got outscored in the second half. The Huskies, but these guys are ready, and you can see that they are disciplined, and you don't see somebody going in the next player in that is not physically ready. And Coach Saha has done just a tremendous job, and sign the guy, put some more ink on the paper, give him another bonus. I'm going to give the coaches an A, and particularly Coach Saha another big A.
Hard to disagree.
Can't argue with that. Yeah.
All right, and Anthony, take us to Salt Lake City.
All right. Well, I think we touched on it a little bit. We're entering the biggest week so far of the season for the Huskies. They're playing Utah's number 17 in the country by the AP poll in Utah with the 12:30 kick. ESPN's College Game Day will be on the scene for the first time in Salt Lake City, so it's going to be a raucous environment for sure. They're also going to be facing the Utah team that is leading the South at 4-1 in the conference, but 7-1 overall. They're tied with Colorado. And you got UW also co-leading the North Division with Washington State undefeated. So it's a matchup of the top two teams in the conference and a preview potentially of the conference championship down the road. We won't get ahead of ourselves, but it is a possibility that they do see each other in about a month from now as well. And we will see a familiar fans in the Utah quarterback, so should be interesting.
Yeah, Troy Williams, he did not turn out to be a good fit at the University of Washington, and I don't know whatever it is if he has or has not a chip on his shoulder. I think Husky fans maybe got the better shake of that deal right there with Jake Browning at quarterback. And thanks for that preview. And Tyson, any final thoughts on the Huskies game against the Beavers before we sign off?
Just happy that at least it said 65,000 people there. That was the number I kind of had in my head, because I understand why being that 37-point favorites to 35-point favorites, it might be tough to get a crowd in there. But it seemed like the energy, at least in the first half, was good from the fans, and I was happy to see that.
Yeah, and did you happen to see the bananas in the student section?
No, but that sounds hilarious.
I don't know what that was about.
I've looked around. I could not find out what these bananas were doing. There's nothing. Beavers don't eat bananas that I'm aware of. But the student,
were they saying like slip on the banana? There's a good dozen of them in there, and I had no clue of what was going on. I mean, Halloween is still a week away, so.
Oh, actually, yeah, but I guess that maybe that was it, because there's not a home game for Halloween, so maybe, and all the tailgating had a lot of Halloween stuff out there. Well, and coming up before the USC game, I'm going to be putting a special feature on Real Dog on the Husky tailgating. Speaking of that, I'm going to have a video of the flying W's. This guy has gone out and purchased an ambulance, and he has converted it into the ultimate camping and tailgating thing. I mean, this thing has a bed that it converts from a futon into a bed right there in the back of his van. I mean, the thing is tricked out. Look for that video before the USC game.
Whoa.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening to the RealDawg.com Monday wrap-up show. And that's your cue there, Mr. Studio Engineer. Thanks for listening to the RealDawg.com Monday walkthrough show. Monday wrap-up show. Anyway, tune in Friday night for the walkthrough show. For my co-host, Tysen Allumbaugh, Anthony Dion, producer Dave Edwards, and Ken Norris, our studio engineer.
Was a Howling Husky production.
I'm Mike Martin. Go Dogs.